When you only cover one time, you gotta
When you look at this offensive line this year, with some of the added pieces and everything, you got offensive linemen last year that they signed in the draft. You got another one this year. Talk to me a little bit about just this offensive line and how it's shaping up right now.
Well, right now, obviously, we preach competition, and they're competing. They're all being very professional about it and working their butts off. I mean, obviously, we're at a voluntary point in the off season, but almost everybody's here, and when they go out there, they compete and they work really hard, and they work hard at everything we ask them to do. But this group, the thing that I find really cool about them is they spend extra time. Outside of the practice time that we're allotted, they're all trying to get better on their own on top of the time that we spend with them. And I think that's been the cool thing about seeing just from year one to year two of those guys, taking the onus and putting the responsibility on themselves because they have a vested interest in how good we're going to be individually and collectively. And I really have seen the guys grow tighter together because a large bulk of them were here before.
Yeah.
But I even seen the new guys like Nate Herbig and Foster Sherrill, just seeing those guys kind of get absorbed into the group, and you wouldn't know that they're new just by how all the guys interact and how they work together. And I think that's only going to make us better as an overall unit, and it's going to help our offense.
Speaking of competition, I heard you talk about Larry Tunsil was the only one that got a solid. They talked about that the other day in our meetings. But does that help a lot, being that hey, nobody has a secure position but one person, and everybody is really bringing their A game every day?
Yeah, I mean, iron sharpens iron. You know what I mean? And if you know that you got to compete every day, you value every opportunity. And that's what, we tell the guys, like, hey, listen, don't squander an opportunity. And you see it. Like, it's not like we had to preach it every day. It's not like we had to harp on it. We said it one time, and you see the guys when they go in there, they want to do it right. And they want to do it the way we're asking them to do it. And you see the guys pushing themselves, but you also see guys who are competing against one another, helping one another. And when you see that, you're working with something special. You have potential for something special. Now, at the end of the day, we still got to play the games and all that, but you're seeing the right building blocks being put in place, and you're seeing them being intentional about their job, their responsibilities, the details. And you can't ask for anything more as a coach, especially at this time of year.
When you look back at last year, from the beginning towards the end, you all make it to the NFC Championship. Where did you see the growth of the offensive line the most, and then propelling into this year?
Well, I tell you, I saw the growth within the system. And what I mean by that is this. When we all got here last year, we were all just a collection of guys coming from a bunch of different places. But what I saw them was grow together as a group and care about the group more than individuals. All right, and that was kind of from day one. You saw that in the making. But as the season progressed, you saw them getting tighter. You saw them caring more about the big picture than who's playing, who's getting press. That stuff never popped up. It was all about the team. And if we asked guys to take on extra roles or very defined roles, the guys would do it because it was what was best for the team. And by the time we got to the end, guys didn't care about anything other than the team. And that's what I think really helped us across the board. Offense, defense, special teams. You saw guys caring about the team. They cared about others more than themselves. And I think that's kind of the nature of an offensive lineman in general. But you saw it kind of on display where the expectations weren't real high for us. But we didn't care what the expectations were. We were going to produce to the level that we held ourselves to a certain standard, and we were going to perform to that level. And the level was way higher than the expectations. And we're going to continue to do that. And that's because of them. It has nothing to do with me. It has to do with them. They want to exceed their own expectations. And that's what they're trying to do.
You've been coaching for a long time. Is this the first time that you've seen a group that it's not about them, but it's really about the team?
I think for me, being an offensive line coach, that's kind of like the nature of linemen.
Yeah.
But to see it to a man from top to bottom and across the board, it was pretty unique, and I think that just speaks to the work that AP and DQ have done to get the right people in the building and then get the right people in the right seats.
Looking at the offensive line players, who did you see grow the most, develop the most in their game last year?
Whew. It's a tough question because there was a lot of guys, and if I just said one guy, I'd probably be slighting somebody else, but I'd probably say Nick Allegretti. Here's a guy who'd been a career backup, and all he wanted was the opportunity to be a starter. Not guaranteed to be a starter, but the opportunity. And he seized the opportunity. And by the end of it, here was a guy who played more snaps than any other lineman in the NFL. And he exceeded everybody's expectations because there were probably a lot of people that said, oh, he's just a backup. Well, he didn't play just like a backup. He played like a lineman that played the most snaps in the National Football League by the end of the year. Now, the only reason he made the most snaps is because Sam got hurt.
Yeah.
Sam would have finished with 13 more snaps than Nick. So it showed resiliency, it showed grittiness, it showed durability, it showed toughness, it showed all the things that we preach in our room. So he probably heard what people's expectations were, but he had higher expectations of himself. So, and I saw him grow each week in his confidence, in his leadership, and he's just one example, but he was the one that probably stood out the most to me.
And your young guy, Brandon Coleman, second year, as coaches always say, you expect him to get better in the second year, but what have you seen out of him? And then also Josh Connolly, your new guy.
Well, Brandon would have probably been the second guy that I said I saw the most growth out of last year because young guy, part-time starter, becomes a starter, and each week you saw him get better. You didn't see repeated errors. He's not what I call an error repeater. If he makes a mistake, he learns from it. He doesn't make that same mistake a second time. So I saw a lot of just maturity out of him, a steadiness out of him. I see the same thing out of Josh so far. Very talented, very serious about his business, very intentional about his business. But once again, he's making mistakes periodically, but he doesn't make them twice. He learns from them, so he's very coachable, just like Brandon. So from a personality standpoint, they're different but the same. They're both very professional. They're mature beyond their years. They're both hard workers. I think they care more about not letting their teammates and line mates down, so they hold themselves to a high standard. You see that quality in both of them, and I'm excited to see how Josh continues to develop.
You sound excited about the offensive line this year too.
I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'll put it like that. Where you are always excited of the potential, but you're also very aware of the work that needs to be done to reach that potential. And I think for offensive line coaches and linemen, that work's never done. You never really reach the end of the road. But that's kind of the nature of our job is you keep pushing yourself to get better and better and better. And the guys we have in that room are wired that way, where they want to keep going and keep going. They're never satisfied with where they don't reach a finish line. It's just constantly the journey, and I think they've really taken to that.
And does it help also that you got depth? It seems like you got more depth this year.
Yeah, because it creates options. Because you need a deep crew to get to where we want to go. And injuries, unfortunately, are part of our game, especially at our position. And I pointed to a guy like Trent Scott. We get to the division round, and Sam Cosme had played at that point more snaps than any other lineman in the NFL at that point, and he gets hurt. Trent Scott jumps in at right guard and plays not only that game, but the NFC Championship. And here's a guy who had been a career tackle, and now he's playing right guard. And you would not have known he had never played guard at that point.
Yeah.
So versatility, depth creates options. It allows you to get your best five on the field. And it allows you to have your best three waiting in line.
In the wings, right?
Yeah, without a question. So we've got some good options, but we still have a lot of work to do.
What did they do, and I'm going to let you go after this, what did they do well last year?
Communicate. I know that seems kind of generic, but communication is a huge part of how you get five guys to play like one. They communicated really well, which meant they were seeing things through the same set of eyes. And the second you don't see things through the same lens as the other line mates, that's when problems start to happen. And they did a really good job of staying in constant communication with one another in the meeting room, on the practice field, in drills, in game, on the sideline. They were seeing things the exact same way. That allowed us to communicate coach to player player to coach, player to player very quickly, very efficiently, and to solve problems. Because that's our job, find solutions. Got to solve problems. And I thought they did a really good job of that.
You heard it right here from Coach Bobby Johnson, offensive line coach. Looking for big things from them this year.